to look like one, look like a rangatira when you're sitting. Okay, right, so the first rangatira that we're featuring here is a man called Te Pahi. So he was a Bay of Islands rangatira, and he was the one who'd seen already a lot of Europeans coming, and his nephew, Ruatara, invited the first missionary here at Marsden. So Te Pahi did something amazing in 1805. So anyone who would like to sit as Te Pahi, don't be shy. Kia ora. The cheesy thing on eating.
You look like a nice man.
He was just hold his portrait.
Right.
You are a nice man. You're a thoughtful man.
Thank you so much.
You're a thoughtful man, and what you've noticed is that it's all going well with these Europeans, except when they break Māori law. And you're thinking in terms of, okay, you have law in your country. When you come to my country, it's my law. So he'd noticed, because it was his relatives, that the French had come, a captain called Marion Dufresne, who had sailors on board, who had a Tahitian on board. So a bit like Cook, he had Cook had tupaia. He had someone who understood the Māori. So the local people had said, okay, you're berthed in our bay, you can't fish in the next bay up. It's got a rahu on it, basically, which is death, actually. And Dufresne ignored that, and he sent a 26 men on their fishing skiff off to fish in that bay. So the local people applied Māori law to him. So they executed him. She can stay remain there. You can stay there. You are already sitting as a rangatira. Good. That's good. We'll see which one we're up to. So, yeah, the local people applied tikanga and executed that crew and the captain, as he should have known better. The trouble is, what the French did, is they came back and they just burned down 3 of your relatives' villages and killed about 200 Māori. And you thought, hang on a minute, that's not even legal in your law system. So you resolved in 1805 to go to Sydney and talk to the governor, the nearest governor really of Europeans, and you stayed with him for 3 months. You took your son with you, and every night at dinner you talked about international law, basically, and law in each country and the philosophy of law. And when you heard that this is Governor King, was flogging a man for taking food out of the stores of the penal colony, you said to him, you know, how barbaric that is to flog someone when all it is that they're hungry. You know, in our country, no rangatira would flog a person for being hungry. They'd feed them even more and say, come on, get gardening. You know, it would be, come on, step up. So yeah, you really challenged him about British law. And you said to him, Governor King, I want you to promise to control your sea captains who come to my country. And the trouble is that Governor King said back to you, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't even know who comes to your country. So Te Pahi, you resolved, okay then, we are going to have to do this ourselves if this governor can't help us. So you started inviting other rangatira to sit with you in what came to be called that, General Assembly of the Hapu of this country. So does anyone, can anyone guess what would be like a really famous rangatira from Ngāpuhi that he would have invited? Hika. Who said Hika? Kia ora. Come and be Hika. Oh. Hongi Hika. Yeah, so Heke was his nephew, was a young man. Hongi Hika. Oh, kia ora.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Uri. Yep. Beautiful. Okay. So Hongi Hika, as you know, was a military general, but he was also someone who thought about authority and where it should lie, hence some of his actions. So he thought, why did we bother with the governor in Sydney? That governor is just a servant of the top rangatira of the British world. So we need to talk rangatira to rangatira and go straight to the monarchy in Britain. So by 1820, Hongi Hika resolved to go to Britain. So kia ora, Hongi. Please do not hesitate. But think about that, 1805, 1820, so this group's been meeting for 15 years now, and there's lots of people already in it. So it already has a general secretary, like the United Nations. So we need the person in the room who does the most admin. Kia ora. Your name is Whaka. And you are young and handsome. So then that's important because Waikato was younger than Hongi, so he had been to a missionary school, so his te reo and his writing was perfect, but he also spoke English. So you interpreted for Hongi when you were both in England. And this is a painting of you, because the London newspapers followed you both around. They just thought you were amazing. And they asked you to put on your Kiwi cloak so they could make a portrait of you. Other times you wore velvet jackets and cravats. And they were amazed at your knowledge of world affairs. Because you knew about the French Revolution. This had all happened in the late 1700s. You knew about the American War of Independence. You knew about all that because of French sailors coming, Americans coming. You know, you had actually knowledge of world affairs that completely staggered the London press. Actually, so kia ora to the two of you. So, Hongi, you had your conversation with the young King George, and you said to him, "I want you to promise free trade with my country," because you wanted the musket trade to continue. And the young King George said, "Oh, we'd be delighted," because, you know, for the British to have this, you know, amazing economy at the bottom of the South Seas that was just pouring out food and, you know, rope, flax, muka, and so on was incredible. So, Hongi, you did New Zealand's first free trade agreement in 1820. So it's amazing, you know, preferential trade with another country and then, yeah. So, and then you said to him, "Thank you, in return for that, I promise to let your people live in my country in peace." Yeah. And Ngāpuhi call that Hongi's great promise. Yeah. So, and all iwi acknowledge that the relationship with the British Crown started 20 years before the Treaty of Waitangi. So, you know, that, and the Te Atairangi Kahu and the whole Kingitanga Kahu Ariki here has been really clear about that they have a relationship with the British Crown that predates the Treaty of Waitangi. And that's really important, actually. Yeah, so kia ora Hongi. Now, Waikato, you did something amazing while you were there. You, the missionary with you both, took you to Cambridge University, sat you down with a linguist called Professor Samuel Lee, and you said to him the sounds of the Māori language, and he gave English alphabet letters to each sound. So kia ora. You created the first written Māori book. It was called the Māori Grammar. So the Bible got translated, but this was you speaking. You know, so Māori was a written language from 1820, out of Cambridge University. So look, while these two are doing all this high diplomacy over there, the trade was carrying on here, and so there were two Māori rangatira of the Hokianga side, the western side up the north, who were co-owners of New Zealand's first shipbuilding yard, because they owned all the kauri behind the shipbuilding yard. So they had, yeah, so we just need two people who are anything to do with ships or the sea or even engineering, actually, because these two were great engineers. Two rangatira. Kia ora. Kia ora. So their names were Taonui, Patuoni, and Patuoni, you lived such a long life. You, apparently, when you were 5, you saw Captain Cook arrive. that you could spot and name the girth, you know, the width of a kauri trunk from, 20 paces, and no one could trick you about how valuable your kauri is. So you two, in your beautiful shipbuilding yard, you built a new ship called the Sir George Murray. You sent it over to Sydney, full of food as usual, because those penal colonies in Australia could not have existed without Māori food. So off it went, and probably you were both on board, it's quite possible. When you got there, the Sydney Harbour Master took it into his head. He said, "You're not flying any flag that I recognise." So he confiscated your cargo and impounded your ship. So what do you two think of that?
Yeah, very nice.
No,
Not actually.
this is not happening. Good. So that's exactly what happened. You two thought, excuse me, you need our food. We'll just go and visit the governor, who will know through Te Party, we'll be back for dinner and we'll talk about that. So that's exactly what happened. Discussions began with both of you and the governor. And then those discussions went on for another 3 years. And finally, here we are. This is where you chose them. You came back to your colleagues and talked with them. And this group chose New Zealand's first flag. So it's not just the Whakaputanga flag, it is New Zealand's first national flag. And it should be acknowledged as that. It should have been in the flag competition. Yeah. So it's not a protest flag, it is New Zealand's first national flag. So when you look at it, what do you see? What symbols do you see? The Southern Cross, yeah. There's many stories about stars, but yes, Southern Cross, yeah, could have been, that the Southern Cross unites everyone who sails in the Southern Oceans. You have to be using it. So, yeah. And the other cross, what's that one? British, yeah. Cross of St. George, yeah. So it's a bit of a huge signal by Māori saying, and by the way, we're friends with England. Don't mess with our ships. Yeah, so it was that. It was like an international alliance symbol. So all the colonial navies of the world gazetted that flag. They put it in their book of flags, so that from now on, you couldn't treat Māori shipping as a pirate. You had to see it as a recognised international trader. And in international law, to be recognised as a nation, one of the criteria is that you have a flag that other countries recognise. So it's kind of totally political. It just means you're big and strong enough and important enough for other countries to recognise your flag. Yeah. So kia ora. You put us on the international stage of being a nation, internationally. Yeah, these two did it. And this whole group chose it. So now that flag was starting to be flown, especially in the north, that's when further south they began to take notice. And that's when Te Wherewhero took notice. So he wasn't called Putato yet. There are probably some choices of Uri in the room, but who would like to sit as Te Wherewhero? Kia ora.
Who's king? I'm the first monarchy. No, I'm getting shade. No shade.
I was doing this role play with Tipa Mum, who was talking about her tupuna, Te Wherewhero, and I thought that he was quite a young man because he was going to the north to meet with these colleagues. And she said, no, Ingrid, he was 60 years old when he was doing that. So when he was 60, Te Wherewhero was going north to meet with his colleagues. Because remember, this is now 1830, 1834 was the flag. We're getting real close to the Whakaputanga. So Te Wherewhero, the Ngāpuhi raids were finished, the musket wars were over, he had relatives in Ngāti Hine, so yeah, he was going north. And he was going north to ask, those of you that are in this assembly, why do you need to be in it? You know, we have our own mana as the rangatira, And they were saying because we want to talk to the international world and we want to be one voice when we talk to them. And you talked to this one, these ones, and you also talked to some very powerful ones who said we don't need to be in it. Because it didn't make any difference whether you were in it or not. Your rangatiratanga was intact. Kia ora te whiro. So then we also had two wharetoa.
See, we've got
Okay, I'll go to.
Here we go.
We're all gone.
On the picture for Iwiko, you can see that Iwiko's seated, but his hair is grey, because he did grow old, and grew old enough to be the ariki of Tuwharetoa. His brother, his older brother Mananui, who was alive at that time, and lots of conversations with, because Iwiko was young when he was running up there with Tuwharetoa, but Mananui died earlier, so that's why it looks like that. And they say Te Arawa was possibly there as well, going north. But we'll jump down to Kahungunu. Kahungunu. So,
That was your again, cousin.
this is Hawke's Bay area, Waitangi area. Anyone connected to that area? East Coast, East So Te Hapuku was a young rangatira growing up at Mahia, and the whalers were settled there, and he was disgusted by their behaviour, so he used to try and boss them round. And as he grew older and he heard that this was happening, he thought, I'm going to talk to my fellow rangatira to settle a better class of immigrants in my area. So he was talking about immigration law already. That's why he wanted to talk to his colleagues. Yeah, and all of this group were talking about peace and good order. How do you keep Mākia in order? How do you keep these drunken whalers in order? And about trade, what do you charge for a boat to be berthed in your bay? So they were, talking about all that. And who are you talking to? French, Russians, Americans. So it was that whole conversation among you all. Now, the South Island was involved, but they weren't physically turning up to these meetings. They were sending information up about their sailors and whalers and what they were doing to settle them and coming down. So, do we have So Tuhawaiki was 900. He protected the whole area from Kaiapoi south, so all the way down to Rakiura, was his base down there. So that's not a portrait, it's a mata ora, so yeah, but he drew that himself. So Rangatira knew, men or women, what was on there, inscribed on their faces. And he used that as a signature for a deed. So again, how some people talk about the treaty and the declaration with its marks, but the Rangatira used elements of their tāmoko. That's how they used those as their signature, whether or not they could write an alphabet. It was more important and more powerful to use elements of the Kia ora Tuhawaiki. So you're sitting on the other side. Now, it looks like these are all men, and it's possible that they were the ones who signed, but every rangatira has to always represent the wishes of their people, so they were always going home and ratifying any agreement or discussion here. So they were going home to discuss with the senior women, with the whole hapu. So we need someone to represent mana wahine.
Don't all everyone jump in.
Yeah.
Go then.
You can stand behind him. Oh, yes. Yeah. Kia ora.
So supportive.
So this assembly was meeting regularly and discussing these things and taking the discussions home. But there was one Pākehā that they sometimes invited, and that was James Busby. Take a look at him. He's a handsome young
the descendants came out.
Well, so the young James Busby was placed here as a diplomat, government as a diplomat, and he was a Scotsman, and so he recognised that where he looked at this group and he recognised where the clan leaders meet, that is the Scottish Parliament. It doesn't have to have marble steps or a big building. This is a parliament. So kia ora, James, for recognising what you are looking at. So he suggested to them, it's fantastic you have the flag, it's flying, actually all over the world, or the Pacific, San Francisco, but you should have a document. The rest of the world wants to see a written document. So that's the moment that the whakaputanga came into people's thoughts. It was Busby's suggestion that this group write a declaration of their sovereignty. Proclamation of sovereignty. So everyone, have a think now. Just turn to the person next to you. What would you write in your proclamation of your sovereignty, announcing yourself to the world? What would you say? It's not the treaty. No one's asked to come here yet, as officially. It's just what are you saying about yourselves and your country to the world? Just have a think about it. What would you say? How we are.
The coming together. Coming together. What else? Coming the beginning of the yeah. The starting. Dreams of freedom. Was it the difference? Waikato was the one that was described, and it came down to the ones making the.
So we're pretty much there to see ourselves. Actually, Kate Moody or that's
The beginning of.
So kia ora everyone, I was listening to some things over here and it sounded like exactly what's in the document. So just your thoughts, what would you write? What are your thoughts?
That I love my country and it helps the people thrive and survive.
Yeah, you used the phrase tēnā rangatira. Kia ora, what were your thoughts?
We said that we are the tangata whenua.
Say a bit more than that, but yes, cool. You do say that. You say we are the tēnā rangatira. It's actually what you say. We are the tēnā rangatira. Total authority. Total authority. No matter. And no matter.
And you don't touch our women, you don't touch our children, and you don't touch our parents.
Yeah, so hold on to that thought. If you heard that, there's some things said about law here. Hang on, any advances on this? All right, carrying on, what we might actually write. What would you write in your document?
Who we are.
Yeah, you say who you
And
are.
these are the kawa te kawa
Yes.
of being in our country.
Yeah, yeah, the laws are ours. Yeah. You don't even bother to explain them, you just say the law is ours. Yeah, that's right. Any other thoughts about what we might put in it?
This is how our laws are run by.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
This is how we do things.
Yes, yes.
And you are still welcome.
Yeah,
Under
on those conditions. Yeah, that's right.
to trying to get my father here, actually.
What's it?
Trying to get my father here.
Any other thoughts? do another couple of very practical things. They say we will meet every year in autumn. So they're kind of meaning if you want to talk to our country, we'll give you our reply when we meet in autumn. Then they also say, and by the way, we're friends with England. So England is acting as a parent to us at the moment. So don't mess with us until we emerge into complete statehood. Yeah. So it's an incredibly, practical announcement of this country to the world and how it's going to be if you try and come here. So look, okay, I'm going to show you what it looks like, the actual country itself. I'll just whiz it past here and then I'll give it to the rangatira. But just notice anything you notice about it. Beautiful. Thank you. And something's underlined. Right, okay. I can just pass it along. Oh, and then I'll just show you too. Here are some signatures of some of the ones that are seated there actually. Near the bottom, Te Whero Whero, Taunui.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful image.
No, not that.
Yeah, they got the scribes in there talking about
Yeah,
the symbols.
yeah. So what was the thing that you noticed about it? What you noticed that it was beautiful writing. It was by one of these young ones that have been to the mission schools and got their. But what language is it written in? It's written in Te Reo Māori. Yeah, that's right. So New Zealand's absolutely first constitutional document ever is written in Te Reo Māori. So some of those, and we'll see in a moment when we look at the sheets, it's got the same words in it as I used later in the treaty.
And it's got new meaning,
Yeah.
not Aotearoa New Zealand.
No, Aotearoa was not a name for the whole country then. No, that's a modern idea. Well, and they used Neotireni because they wanted to use a word that the rest of the world would understand. So same name, Tasman. Okay. Yeah, transliteration, kills us. So I'll invite you to pick up your red and white posters and just have a look at what they are saying there. It's very short. Oh. So on the left, you're seeing the Te Reo Māori, the way it was actually written. On the right, you're seeing Busby's or Williams' translation, and it's a good translation. There's not arguments about that. With Mr. Busby, you spoke Te Reo Māori quite well. So I'll just draw your attention to a couple of things in Te Reo. We can look at it again when we go back into the other room. That in the second article, it uses the words pingitanga and mana. And further down in the second article, that's where it first uses the word kawa. So we'll look at this more carefully in the slides, but can I ask you all to now we'll close off this activity, but I'm going to finish by asking two questions. Audience, when you look at this assembly, Whaka Minenga, what's your impression of them? What are some words that come to your mind about them?
Very intelligent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brainy.
Yes. Yeah, what do you see when you look at them? They come with rough.
Leadership.
Collective.
Oh, yeah.
Future thinkers.
Yeah, kotahitanga, kia ora. Yeah, leadership. Yeah. Mana.
Mana motu.
Kia ora. Now, for you as a rangatira, how does it feel to be sitting here? What are your feelings being in this position?
Hard job.
Yeah, it's intense.
And hope I can provide.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, so a huge amount of responsibility on you. Yeah. Okay.
Stressful but up for the challenge,
Yeah.
I would say.
Stressful, but yeah.
A natural way of organising.
Yes. For us, yes. Because everywhere, for hundreds of years, there had been assemblies that called runanga or tōrangatira, they were called, meaning the seat of leaders, where leaders sit. Yeah, kia ora, natural. Strategic. Utterly. Moving forward, eh? Yeah, utterly strategic.
Mana.
Nana. Yep. So any other thoughts before we close up this activity? Just what this group was like and what they were offering.
On the not right side,
Yeah.
I chose us because she's Napoli, and so she was on the right track. And this was also my partner's, diary. And I picked me for this evening because my father built those. Yes, that's right. So it was funny. And nothing.
Accompanied the era.
Yeah, so any other thoughts from you as a rangatira? Beautiful to hear those, yeah.
These two champions are bros, and I've got an uncle who's come from the south, the slum.
Yeah.
They're one.
So a lot of people, especially non-Māori, have no idea that this ever happened or that this ever existed and that this was already a plan for New Zealand. Because one thing that used to happen is that Mr. Busby would write, they'd invite him into their meeting when they wanted to talk about Pākehā. So they thought of him as the leader of his hapu. And so it made complete sense. Actually, Mr. Busby, you can get a bit closer to them now and be in the whakamearing. It made sense to all of them, as Polly said, it's such a natural way of organising. You sit down the leaders of all the iwi hapu and you discuss and you come to a consensus. That then when Busby was here, right, then he'll represent his new hapu. So that's totally constitutionally normal in the Māori world. So when the English, and 5 years later, came along with the treaty, and it was Mr. Hobson who was saying, I can be the governor here, they just thought, oh, look, okay, Busby, you can go home and retire now. And instead we'll have your Mr. Hobson sitting in that chair. And this time you'll have the power to actually enforce law with the young people. So it seems very normal and understandable to Māori that that's what Hobson would do. They called it come governor and sit as one with us. That's where that whole expression about one comes from the Waitangi things. It wasn't, we are now one people. It was come and sit as one with us, as one. So my personal thought, because I work so much with people from other countries again, is that the rangatira might have decided, okay, we've got Mr. Hobson for all the Pākehā, but now we're having lots and lots of Indian people coming to New Zealand, so we'll need, and they have a different faith, Hindu, it's a different tikanga, so we actually should have an Indian governor as well. They would have written another treaty for an Indian governor. Oh, now we've got lots of Chinese gold miners here. Let's have a Chinese tikanga, Buddhist governor. And then next minute, Muslim people are coming here. Right, we need a governor that can, follow that tikanga. So it's quite possible if we pick this up again, if New Zealand picks this up again as a way of having constitutional arrangements, that could happen. So yeah, that's just following how the mindset would have worked. So folks, any concluding things you'd like to say about this? Because it's quite a powerful activity.
On that, it was kind and inclusive and welcoming.
Yeah. And you compare with today and what's happening now, but it was the comfort was there, the understanding and see the increasement.
Yeah, the
Calm.
Waitangi. Yeah, the Waitangi. I know, too late you said it. Hey, yeah.
They're ours to represent all the people, not these people going, this is how you do it. How does everybody need to do it?
Yeah, so that's why they wanted to talk to us. Come and represent your people, that's normal.
Yeah, no, you matata one.
Absolutely. So, yeah, don't lose the picture of this, it could be there again, you know, but that's how a unified government of this country did start. It was this group that started it. Yeah. And it was flowing, I'll finish off with this, it was flowing its way south, the invitation to join, so that's how it went down like that. And, you know, when the treaty was presented to Te Wherowhero, so Te Wherowhero, apparently, when the treaty was presented to you, you said, I don't need to sign the treaty. The declaration says everything that I want to say. And apparently, they're not for sure, but they think that probably Mananui said the same thing on behalf of this group. Yeah, I don't need to sign the treaty. Some of these ones did sign, but others did not. And they didn't need to, because they already placed their mana clearly to the world, presented it to the world in the declaration. So give them a big clap.